Why does a man sometimes become distant at the very moment everything seems to be going right? You've spent months building trust, sharing meaningful conversations, and imagining a future together. He talks about we. He includes you in his plans. Then, just as the relationship feels ready for a deeper commitment, something shifts. His messages become shorter, his energy changes, and you're left wondering what happened. Many women see this as proof that he's losing interest. But that isn't always the truth. Sometimes, the closer a relationship gets to becoming permanent, the more a man's hidden fears begin to surface. The very moment his feelings grow deeper can also become the moment he starts questioning himself, not because he cares less, but because the stakes suddenly feel much higher. Understanding what's happening beneath that distance can completely change the way you respond. Instead of chasing answers or assuming the worst, you'll begin to see why this pattern is far more common than most women realize, and why your response during this moment can shape everything that comes next. The real commitment line is his family. Nobody proposes marriage after 2 months at 60. Nobody moves in together just because things feel exciting. By this age, most of us have already worn that ring once, sometimes twice, and we know it never guaranteed anything. So the real threshold looks different now. It is quieter than anyone expects. It shows up the first time he mentions bringing you to Sunday dinner with his grown children. It shows up when the conversation turns to where you would live if one of you got sick, or who gets called first in an emergency. I have heard the same pause from women in their 60s and 70s for years now. Everything was warm and steady until the topic of family or the future came up, and then he went quiet for a week. That silence is not about love fading. It is about a man realizing that letting you into his family means his children will judge the decision. His history will be compared. His future will be rewritten with someone new standing in it. That is a much bigger door than any proposal ever was. If you have felt a man pull back right after meeting his kids, or right after a conversation about wills and health, you were not imagining things. That was the real line. He was standing at it too. I know this line well because I stood at it myself once. What happened next was not what I expected. Loving again can feel like betrayal. There is a photograph in my nightstand drawer that is not of the woman I love now. It is of Ellen, my wife of 31 years, who died in 2019. I kept that drawer closed for a long time. Then Margaret came into my life. Everything in me wanted her, and everything in me resisted her at the exact same time. That contradiction has a name. Almost nobody in dating advice ever mentions it. It is a kind of loyalty most people never think to name. I remember the exact night I understood it. Margaret asked about my wedding anniversary. I froze. I changed the subject. I went quiet for 3 days after that, and she had no idea why. She thought I was pulling away from her. I was actually pulling away from my own guilt. This is not rare. I have talked to enough men and women in their 60s and 70s to know this pattern by heart. The details change. The shape of it never does. It rarely gets said out loud. Men especially tend to disappear into silence instead of explaining it, because naming it out loud can feel like disloyalty to someone who can no longer speak for themselves. I want to say this plainly because I believe it. Loving someone new does not erase the person you lost. It never has. It never will. That is not just something I believe out of hope. It is something I have watched play out over and over in men who eventually let themselves love again fully. The guilt fades. The love does not shrink to make room for it. It grows around it. If he goes quiet after a tender moment, ask what he might be grieving, not just what he might be doubting. That fear of disloyalty is only one layer. Underneath it, for a lot of men his age, there is an even quieter fear about his own body and what it means for the people he loves. His new fear is becoming a bird. Have you noticed he waves off his own doctor's appointments as if they don't matter? Have you watched him brush past a stumble on the stairs and change the subject fast? That is not carelessness. That is fear wearing a very convincing disguise. For most of his life, being enough meant bringing home a paycheck, fixing what broke, standing between you and whatever threatened your safety. That definition does not disappear at 60. It just runs out of the tools it used to rely on. Muscles that some carried boxes up 3 flights now ache walking to the mailbox. He notices that shift long before you do. It rattles something in him that has nothing to do with you. He skips the checkup. He shrugs off the limp. He jokes about being too old for this and then goes quiet right after. Underneath every one of those small moments sits one enormous question he is too proud to say out loud. What if my body becomes the reason she has to take care of me instead of the other way around? That question terrifies a man far more than any conversation about money ever could, because it threatens the one role he has held onto his whole adult life. He would rather grit his teeth through pain than say a word, because silence still feels safer than admitting weakness. I want to be direct about this. Being a good partner at 60 was never about having a flawless body. It was never about that at 30 either. But he has not caught up to that truth yet, and pretending his health fears do not exist will not get him there any faster. A protector who admits he is scared is still a protector. A man who hides it just becomes tired and alone. That fear about his body is only the loudest one. Underneath everything he has not said out loud, 5 quiet questions are running through his mind, and one of them has almost nothing to do with love at all. 5 silent questions before he commits. Somewhere between his morning coffee and the moment he finally calls you back, a man works through 5 questions in complete silence. He does not write them down. He does not say them out loud, but every single one gets answered before he lets himself lean in fully. Does he love her? Does he like the man he becomes when he's around her? Is this the stage of life he actually wants to be in? Can he imagine being fully himself with her for as long as they have left? 4 of those 5 questions are nearly the same ones a 30-year-old would ask himself. The 5th one is not. A younger man asks himself if he can provide enough, if his career or his bank account measures up. A man in his 60s asks something heavier. Does he have enough time left, enough strength left, enough good years left to give her everything he wants to give her? That question does not show up on a resume. It shows up at 3 in the morning when neither of you can sleep. This is the question that stops men cold, more than any other on the list. Not because he doubts loving you, because he is doing quiet math on mortality while trying to fall in love, and nobody ever taught him how to do both at once. And that silence deserves patience, not suspicion. Watch for it in the pause before he answers a simple question about the future. That pause is not hesitation about you. It's arithmetic. Knowing what he's silently calculating changes everything about how you respond to his pause. Now the real question becomes what you do while he's doing that math. Release, anchor, invite, not ultimatums. Stop waiting for him to arrive at clarity all on his own. That is the biggest mistake I watch women make once they understand everything we have just talked about. Understanding his fear is not the same thing as fixing it for him. There are 3 things you can actually do, and none of them involve an ultimatum. Release the blame first. His silence was never proof that you were not enough. Say that to yourself until you believe it, because you cannot do the next 2 steps while you are still angry at him for being afraid. Then anchor. Get painfully clear, just for yourself, about what you actually want at this point in your life. Not what you hope he decides. What you want. A relationship that keeps moving forward, a partner who introduces you to his family, a future that has your name in it. Write it down if you have to. Certainty is not something you can fake your way into. Then invite, and this is where most advice gets it wrong. An invitation is not a deadline with a bow on it. A woman I know, Barbara, wanted her boyfriend to meet her grandchildren before the year ended. She did not give him 3 days. She sat down and told him plainly that meeting them mattered to her and that she needed to know sometime soon whether he saw the same future she did. No threat, no countdown. Just the truth, spoken once clearly. He met her grandchildren 6 weeks later, not because she pushed, because she finally stopped shrinking her own, wants down to a size that felt safe to ask for. That is not pressure. That is love that already knows its own worth. So, if there's one thing I want you to carry out of this video, it's this. His silence at every stage we've talked about, from the family he's afraid to bring you into, to the body he's afraid will fail you, to the quiet math he's running behind his eyes, was never a message that you weren't loved enough. It was a man doing the same thing every one of us does when love finally has enough at stake. Getting scared and forgetting to say so. At 60, love doesn't need a proposal to be real. It needs you to stop waiting and start being clear. I'd love to know your own experience with this. Have you ever felt someone go quiet right when you finally let your guard down? What did you do next? Tell me in the comments. I read every single one, and I'll see you in the next video.